There's nothing more frustrating than realizing this. You gave the best of yourself to the wrong person. You showed up, you supported, you gave your time, your energy, your love, and still it wasn't enough. And then comes what hurts the most. They ignore you, they replace you, they make you feel invisible, as if you had never mattered. But here's what they don't know: in silence, you're waking up, because there's something stronger than the pain of not being valued. It's the moment you decide you'll never beg for love again. Today, you're going to learn how to turn that wound into your greatest power. I'll show you 10 actions that unsettle the one who didn't know how to value you. Not from vengeance, but from self-mastery, dignity, and stoic wisdom. Each of these actions is a silent but devastating message. You didn't lose me today. You lost me the day you stopped valuing what you'll never have again. Stay until the end, because action number 7 doesn't just make them question their decision. It forces them to face the truth. They no longer have any power over you. Before we begin, I want you to make a commitment by writing in the comments, "Starting today, I will no longer beg for attention." Let that phrase be your reminder that you're here to reclaim your power, not to keep waiting for the recognition of someone who never saw your worth. This is your moment to choose yourself, to close doors with dignity, and to prove that your value doesn't depend on anyone except you. Without further ado, let's begin. Action. Number 1. Make them wish they had protected what they lost. There are moments in life when someone's silence hurts more than any word, not because that person is essential, but because you believed you were essential to them. And that's where the confusion begins. When someone who once seemed to care so deeply for you suddenly lets you fall, as if you had never meant anything at all. How do you cope with that kind of abandonment? How do you accept that someone who once swore to protect you now doesn't even remember you? The answer isn't revenge, and it's not begging for answers either. It lies in something much more powerful: becoming the kind of person that, once lost, everyone wishes they had protected. Not out of manipulation, not out of vengeance, but as a natural response to your transformation. Because when a human being truly begins to heal, something about their presence changes. They stop vibrating in lack and begin to radiate strength. They stop chasing those who didn't value them and begin walking with a dignity that refuses to be ignored. The most common mistake after heartbreak is trying to prove your worth from a place of pain. But Stoicism teaches us the opposite. You don't need to shout your value. You need to embody it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." And that enemy isn't a person. It's your wounded, reactive, desperate version of yourself. When you choose to stop being that version, something shifts. If you want someone to realize what they lost, don't confront them with words. Confront them with your new reality. Let them see, without you ever saying it, that you're no longer part of their world, and that their world is emptier without you in it. Not out of ego, but out of clarity. When you focus on your growth, your peace, your well-being, it becomes undeniable, even to those who once underestimated you. They lost something they will never find again. Your authenticity, your presence, your light. This isn't achieved by masking your wounds or faking happiness. It's achieved by turning pain into purpose, chaos into focus, sadness into strength. Move with the calm of someone who has nothing left to prove, with the elegance of someone who has made peace with their past. Be like marble, unshaken by storms, because when someone sees you steady, whole and serene, they understand, without words, you're no longer within reach. And that's when regret begins to rise. Not because you triggered it, but because the truth is now undeniable. The way you carry yourself has become so clear, so strong, so valuable, that the one who failed to care for you now realizes they lost something irreplaceable. And that feeling, my friend, it doesn't go away. It plants itself like a seed of doubt, and it grows with every one of your steps, with every one of your wins, with every day that you show you are better off without them. Stoicism doesn't aim to control others. It aims to help you master yourself. Because when you control your emotions, your boundaries, your attention, you stop being someone else's game. You become a mirror. A mirror that silently reminds them of what they failed to protect. And if you stay steady, if you keep moving forward without turning back, there will come a day when they look at you with a mix of nostalgia and shame. Because deep down, they'll know they had everything, and they let it slip away. And just when they finally understand, just when they're ready to protect what they lost, you'll already be gone. And that will be the most stoic, most elegant, and most powerful move of all. Now, are you ready to take this detachment one step further? Because if this first act of transformation sparked their regret, the second will force them to face it head-on. Get ready, because what's coming isn't just a change of image. It's an emotional rebirth that will mark a before and after in your life. Action number 2. Become the version they will never be able to forget. How many times have you been left with the feeling of not being enough? As if everything you gave, your time, your attention, your tenderness, your best ideas, and your most painful silences, had been thrown into a bottomless pit. You looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back, because it wasn't you anymore. It was the withered version of someone who tried too hard to be seen, to be chosen, to be important to someone who simply didn't know how to value you. But what hurts isn't that they left. What hurts is that they left without ever seeing everything you could become. That abandonment wasn't an ending, it was a turning point. Because now you have a choice before you: to crawl through the ruins of a broken relationship, or to become the masterpiece they will never be able to erase from memory. This action is not about revenge, it's not about appearances, it's about transformation, deep reconstruction, a stoic rebirth. The philosophy of Marcus Aurelius puts it simply: the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. And I'd add one more thing. The best response is to become someone so admirable, so strong, so radiant, that their only option is to remember that one day they were close to you and let you go. Becoming that unforgettable version of yourself is not about makeup for social media or faking strength. It's about cultivating the quiet power of someone who trains their mind, body, and soul. It's about sharpening your gaze and your purpose, going to the gym not for appearance, but for discipline, reading not to impress, but to awaken, surrounding yourself with people who add value, choosing battles worth fighting, and above all, living with a level of presence and authenticity that doesn't need anyone else to shine. Because every step you take toward that unforgettable version of you is a subtle message that reaches beyond words. When that person sees from a distance your confident gaze, your upright posture, your refined style, your unshakable peace, something inside them will break, because they'll know that they can't reach you anymore. They're no longer part of your world. You're no longer waiting. That transformation, when real, isn't built for others. It's built for you. It's the most stoic and elegant rebellion, turning pain into power and the wound into a work of art. Seneca expressed it with surgical precision. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Don't waste one more minute of your life waiting to be seen by someone who never truly looked. In your daily life, this action shows up in small decisions. Waking up early, even when you don't feel like it. turning off your phone to read for half an hour, treating your nutrition like you're protecting a temple, ignoring messages that don't serve you, saying no with elegance, and most importantly, refusing to prove anything to anyone. Because here lies the real secret. The moment you no longer need them to come back is the moment you unsettle them the most. Becoming the version they'll never forget doesn't mean doing it for them to notice. It means doing it so that you never forget who you really are. Every improvement, every habit, every step toward your best self is a silent declaration of emotional independence. You're saying, I don't need to be chosen because I've already chosen myself. And if you're ever tempted to seek their attention again, remember this. You cannot miss what you can no longer reach. You're not on their radar anymore, because now you live on a higher level. A level where respect is non-negotiable, where love isn't begged for, where you demand with dignity the place you deserve. And if they can't offer it, you simply keep walking. This is how your rebirth begins. This is how you build the version of yourself that will leave an unforgettable mark. And when you think you've reached the peak of your transformation, get ready, because the next action will teach you how to turn even their absence into the most powerful gift of your life. Your dignity is not negotiable. If you're ready to stop seeking validation and start living with power, subscribe. This space is a refuge for those who are healing, growing, and learning to close doors with elegance. Don't let someone who didn't value you define your story. We're just getting started. Action number 3, make their absence look like the best thing that ever happened to you. At first, their absence hurt like an emotional amputation. You walked around haunted by the sound of their voice, whispering doubts, replaying memories of what could have been but never was. Maybe you stared at your phone, waiting for a sign, a message, an excuse to justify the unjustifiable. Because that's what we do when we're hurting. We search for emotional crumbs to survive the hunger of being acknowledged by someone who's no longer there. But the thing that destabilizes the person who gave you up isn't your suffering. It's the day you wake up and realize their absence was the best thing that ever happened to you. Can you imagine what that means? That what you once believed was the center of your universe now holds no place even on your outskirts. That what once broke you actually freed you. And in its place, a life bloomed, so rich, so full, so profoundly yours, that all you can do now is feel grateful they packed their bags and left. There is no greater silent blow than your well-being without them. No more powerful statement than a smile without reason, a laugh that doesn't include them, a brand new story in which even their shadow doesn't appear. Because when someone sees that you're thriving in their absence, they're forced to face the worst mirror of all, the one that doesn't need them. From a Stoic perspective, this is called transformation through pain. It's not about denying the experience nor hating them. It's about using that experience as fuel for evolution. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." And that's exactly what you do when you build a life where their absence is no longer a tragedy, but a blessing in disguise. But careful, this isn't a performance. It's not about pretending to be okay just to provoke them. It's not about posting pictures, making them jealous, or crafting a cardboard cutout happiness. It's about truly changing, embracing your new chapter with strength and freedom, traveling solo, accepting new invitations, staying home with a book and feeling at peace, and discovering that life doesn't hurt when you finally learn to live it for yourself. That's the most elegant irony of all. You didn't need anyone to rescue you. You saved yourself. And while they imagine you're still trapped in the past, you're on a different frequency, meeting people who don't make you question your worth, trying new things you never gave yourself permission to do, reviving old dreams you shelved to prioritize someone who, deep down, never knew what they had in their hands. Make their absence look like the best part of your life. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because when they left, they created space. And you filled that space with something far greater than them. Your growth. Maybe before you felt incomplete. Now you realize you were never half of anything. You were always whole. Someone just made you believe you weren't. And now that they're gone, you can see yourself again. Complete, strong, valuable, determined. Not because they left, but because you chose to stay with yourself. This action has almost magical power. It changes the entire narrative, from poor her without him, to total inspiration. The victim becomes the guide. The one who waited becomes the one who moves forward. The one who stayed silent becomes the one who laughs freely. And that metamorphosis, even if unspoken, is obvious. It shows in your firmer silences, in your steadier peace, in your bolder decisions, and in how you've stopped talking about him. Because he no longer takes up space in your story. His absence didn't empty you. His absence taught you how to fill yourself up. So if someone ever asks whether it hurt when he left, smile. Because you know something most people don't. There are absences that save you. And there are endings that, though they hurt, are the only doors that lead you back to yourself. Now that you're beginning to understand your true power, get ready. The next action won't just solidify your new identity, it will elevate it to a level he will never reach. Action number 4, become someone they can no longer reach. Nothing is more unsettling to someone who didn't know how to value you than realizing you are now out of reach. When you were available, when you always responded, when you put their well-being before your own, they didn't see you. Or worse, they saw you but didn't appreciate you. They had you close but never truly looked at you, like someone who overlooks a treasure simply because it's always in sight. But the day you started pulling away, choosing yourself, rebuilding yourself, everything changed. Because distance doesn't just measure space, it measures evolution. And while you grew, they remained exactly where they lost you. This is the moment when you stop being an option and become an inspiration they can no longer reach. Not because you've grown arrogant, not because you want to hurt them, but because in focusing on your goals, your discipline, your peace, you leveled up. And not everyone is prepared to meet you there. This isn't about building walls out of revenge. It's about realizing your personal transformation is like a staircase. Every step you take toward your best self naturally and irreversibly distances you from people who couldn't or wouldn't grow alongside you. This is the essence of Stoicism applied to self-worth. Epictetus taught, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Welcome them as they happen, and you'll always be okay." And you, rather than waiting for them to change, to come back, to finally wake up, you changed. And that's what throws them into crisis, because they can't predict you anymore. They don't know how to press your buttons, destabilize you, or make you come running back. You're no longer the person who stayed, even when treated with indifference. Now your silence speaks louder than 1,000 words, and your absence is felt more deeply than your presence ever was. Becoming someone they can no longer reach is not a theatrical act. It's a mark of maturity. It means raising your standards, your environment, your conversations, your circles. It means you no longer walk on the same path, not because you think you're better, but because you now know your worth. And while they search for in others what they can no longer find in you, you're building a life that doesn't need their recognition. You're reading books they never cared to open. You're learning to love yourself without broken mirrors. You're becoming a woman or man who no longer needs validation, because you've already found it within. Their desperation begins when they realize that even if they tried to come back, they wouldn't know how to talk to you anymore because your conversations have changed. Your language has changed. Your boundaries have changed. And what you once tolerated now doesn't even make it through the door. This process hurts at first because you begin to see all the times you made yourself small so they could feel big. All the opportunities you missed by prioritizing their chaos. But after that uncomfortable truth comes something powerful: freedom. The kind where you no longer need to cling to anyone to feel worthy. Now, if they approach you, they won't find the same version of you. They'll find a man or woman with strength, with direction, with purpose. And they'll understand, too late, that they can no longer reach you, not because you ignore them, but because you've grown too much to ever fit in their small world again. Marcus Aurelius said it best: what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. And you are no longer part of the emotional ecosystem that once poisoned you. You've created a new environment with new pillars where your peace is the priority and your growth is law. Don't be surprised if they try everything to come back, if they reappear dressed as redemption, change, nostalgia. But you're no longer in the place you left. You've advanced so far that even if they tried to catch up, they'd first have to face everything they never wanted to see in themselves, and that not everyone is willing to do. So don't fear becoming unreachable, because this isn't about walking away out of pride. It's about protecting what took you so long to build, a life of your own, full of meaning, far from those who only knew how to subtract. This action, quiet yet firm, is the greatest act of self-love. Because you don't need to shout your transformation, living it is enough. And while they wonder how to win you back, you've already become someone who would never lose themselves for anyone ever again. Get ready. What's coming next will not only mark a turning point, it will redefine how you look at the person who hurt you and how you choose to respond with a disarming elegance. Action number 5, treat him with respect, like a stranger. Do you know what unsettles someone the most? Someone who once had you at the center of their world. It's not your anger. It's not your complaints. Not even your indifference. It's your silent respect. That polite yet distant tone that makes it clear there's no longer a story between you, only a past that no longer hurts. And that drives him crazy. Because he expected yelling, he expected accusations, he expected drama, but he never expected you to speak to him the way one speaks to someone irrelevant. With courtesy, without emotion, without familiarity, the way you speak to a stranger. And the most fascinating part? This attitude doesn't come from pride. It comes from a healing so deep that you no longer need to prove anything. You no longer want to convince him he was wrong. You no longer want to be seen as the better choice. You just want peace. In this context, respect becomes an elegant weapon because it doesn't humiliate, but it does create distance. It doesn't attack, but it sets boundaries. It doesn't shout, but it sends a clear message. You no longer hold the place you once did, and I don't need to say it. You'll feel it. And he does. Believe me, he does. When he sees you smile, but not for him. When he hears you respond, but without enthusiasm. When he sees you listen, but without engagement. That serene coldness has more impact than any emotional outburst, because it reveals that the bond broke from within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." And that's what you do when you treat him with respect, not for him but for yourself. Because keeping your composure, even in front of someone who hurt you, is a sign of evolution. You've matured so much that you won't allow yourself to sink to the level of resentment. Silence, when grounded, speaks louder than words. Treating him like a stranger doesn't mean erasing the memories. It means they no longer have power over you. It means you've turned the page, that you no longer need to talk about what happened because you've healed from it, that you no longer need to remember who you were because who you are now is far greater than that story, and that hurts more than any accusation, because while you greet him with neutrality and move on with your life, he's trapped in confusion. How can she be this fine? How can she be so indifferent? Did I really mean nothing to her? That's where his torment begins, because you're no longer at war, you are at peace, and that is your greatest victory. From the Stoic lens, Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters, and you chose the most powerful reaction, serenity. Your kindness without closeness is not a contradiction, it's a declaration. I respect you as a human being, but you're no longer part of my emotional world. And by maintaining that invisible yet unbreakable boundary, you make it clear that access to your life is not regained with a casual hello or a friendly smile. This type of respect, paradoxically, wounds deeper than resentment because it leaves no doors open. It offers no chance for reconnection. It communicates that there's no space to rebuild what was. There's only the acceptance that they lost someone who will never again trade dignity for affection. There's something profoundly stoic about all this. It's not about acting cold to cause pain. It's about acting with composure so that pain can no longer be caused. It's a form of self-affirmation that doesn't need performance, only presence. And yes, they may try to provoke you. They may want you to explode, to say something, anything, because the calmer you are, the more it eats at them that they no longer have control. But that's your greatest test. To resist the urge to step into emotional mud, to remain grounded in your center. At the end of the day, that person will know they can't affect you anymore. Not because you hate them, but because you freed yourself. And that freedom, that emotional self-mastery, that stoic composure, is what frustrates them the most. Get ready, because the next action won't just confront their guilt. It will force them to face what they no longer have and can never get back. Action number 6. Remember that those who didn't value you don't deserve your memory. Do you know why some people come back months or even years later? It's not always because they miss you. Sometimes they come back just to check if you're still there, if your heart is still a space they can enter whenever it suits them. They don't return out of love. They return out of ego, and that's where many people stumble. Because they confuse a return with redemption. They confuse a memory with genuine nostalgia. But not everyone who comes back is here to stay. And not everyone who thinks of you does so with love. Some come from guilt, others from curiosity, and many from the fear that you've finally forgotten them. But if you've done the stoic work, if you've truly grown stronger in silence, if you've endured your darkest nights without sending a message, without begging for attention, you reach a brutally liberating realization. Not everyone deserves to be remembered, because not every painful story is worthy of memory. Sometimes the wisest thing isn't to remember, but to let go, not to relive, but to close the door. Because to keep remembering someone who didn't value you is like keeping a wound open that has already healed. It's betraying your present out of loyalty to a past that no longer defines you. Seneca put it clearly, it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And how much time do we waste remembering someone who never deserved it, idealizing moments that were never that great, justifying the unjustifiable, clinging emotionally to a version of someone that only existed in your mind? So remember this. To someone who didn't know how to value you, the only thing you owe is forgetting. You don't need to make a scene. You don't need explanations. You don't need revenge. You only need to live in such peace with yourself that there's no longer any mental space for the one who made you feel not enough. So that one day, if you come across their name, their face, their voice, you feel neither cold nor warmth, only neutrality, only the echo of a story that no longer hurts. And that, my dear listener, is power, Stoic power, because your mind becomes your temple, and in that temple there's only space for what nourishes your soul. Anything that weakens you, that made you question your worth, that reduced you to emotional crumbs, has no place there anymore. It doesn't deserve your rage, but it doesn't deserve your tenderness either. It only deserves one thing, silence, and that silence speaks. It speaks of your evolution. It speaks of your boundaries. It speaks of the fact that you are no longer where they left you. You've grown. You've healed. You've learned to look forward without letting the past drag you back. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So ask yourself, what color do you want to carry with you? The gray of resentment or the gold of emotional freedom? To remember someone who didn't value you is to give mental space to someone who no longer has space in your life. It's keeping a flame alive that only consumes oxygen and gives no warmth. Why should you keep that flame burning? You have the right to erase. You have the right to forget. You have the right to say, this no longer serves me. Not out of bitterness, but because you now protect your energy, because you've understood that true self-love is also about being selective with your memories. Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. So today I invite you to examine your opinions about the past, to ask yourself, why am I still thinking about someone who didn't think about me? Why am I still giving power to someone who used it to hurt me? Today, you choose to reclaim that power. Today, you choose to look forward without invisible chains. And when someone comes back with lines like, I've been thinking about you, or I've realized so many things, smile to yourself, because you'll know you're standing in a place where you no longer need validation, because now your most important memory is you. You're the one who deserves your attention, your care, your reflection, not the one who ignored you, not the one who underestimated you, not the one who let you go without a fight. They stayed behind. You are here, present, alive, strong. And just as Action 5 taught you how to impose distance with elegance, this sixth action trains you in the most refined art of emotional freedom, the ability to forget with dignity. But be careful, because what's coming next won't be quiet. It's fire, a powerful declaration of emotional independence that needs no one to prove you've already moved on. Do you want to know what hurts them the most after being forgotten? Get ready, because now comes what truly breaks them. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to reclaim the worth you've always had. Subscribe and comment, My worth depends on no one, to affirm your commitment to a life of self-respect and emotional strength. This is just the first step toward a life where you no longer accept crumbs. When you reach the ninth action, you'll discover a pivotal shift, one that could change how you see yourself and how others see you. Don't miss it. It might just be the transformation you've been waiting for. We continue. Action number 7, show them they've been replaced, even without someone else. There's a quiet yet deeply devastating way to make someone realize what they lost, by showing them they no longer have a place in your life, and that you didn't need anyone else to fill that space. Not with another relationship, not with a new partner, but through a transformation so intense, so authentic, so full, that the void they left was replaced by the best version of yourself. And that, trust me, is stronger than any photo with someone else. It's more painful than any post with a new date, because when someone who didn't value you sees that you moved forward without needing replacements, without flaunting a new person, they're faced with a cruel truth. You don't need them. Not to love, not to live, not even to remember. When you disappear from the narrative they used to tell themselves about you, when you become someone who no longer reacts, no longer checks in, no longer sacrifices yourself, you shatter their ego, because the ego needs to feel important. It needs to believe it can come back whenever it wants, and when it discovers its return no longer matters, it panics. That's the art of this action, because you're not pretending you've moved on. You actually have. You're not posting quotes to provoke them. You're building a life where they simply no longer fit. And that is the most stoic, elegant, and powerful form of replacement, when the emptiness they left becomes the engine of your growth. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That person who didn't value you, who failed you, who left you with unanswered questions, was your obstacle. And instead of stumbling over it again and again, you turned it into a step. Now you've climbed. Now you see from a different height, from a new consciousness. And there is no worse punishment for someone who felt indispensable than realizing they weren't. When you live like this, without needing to replace anyone with another body, another voice, another relationship, you send a terrifying message to the ego of the one who left. Emotional independence, real self-love. You're saying, without saying it, I didn't need someone else, I just needed to find myself again. Epictetus taught this clearly. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying your desires, but by removing your dependency on them. And you no longer depend on the one who failed to see you. You don't want revenge. You don't want to make them react. You're just busy building a life so genuinely yours that everything before now feels too small. And if one day they return, because they always do, you don't reject them with anger. You do it with serenity. You show them that the place they once had no longer exists, that the version of you who needed them no longer exists. That's the outcome of doing the inner work. That one day, without announcing it, without drama, you've already replaced their presence with your peace. And there is no message more powerful than that, because you're not pretending to be better. You are. You're not trying to show you've moved on. You truly have. You're not in competition. You're just progressing. You're not in love with someone new. You're in love with your new life. And if that hurts them, it's not your fault. It's their mirror. In that reflection, they'll see everything they failed to care for, everything they didn't value, everything they didn't hold on to. But it's too late, because your soul has no room for what once broke it. Now you have new habits, new passions, new goals. You're full of new beginnings that don't require closure to blossom. This action is an act of self-love, of maturity, of pure stoicism. There's no need to shout, no need to seek revenge. Just keep growing, because growing in silence is the only answer that cannot be argued. And if the previous action trained you in the art of forgetting with dignity, this seventh one gives you the most powerful weapon of all, rebuilding without replacements. You become so whole, so strong, so fully yourself, that no one else can take that place. Because now, that place is filled by you. But be warned, what comes next is not silence, not forgetting, not replacement. What's coming is a direct declaration, a sign that shakes the soul of the one who didn't value you. Proof that you no longer fear them, no longer wait for them, and no longer need them. Action number 8. Let them see you're no longer afraid to lose them. There's a sign louder than 1,000 words. It's not posted, it's not shared, it's not dramatized. It's felt. It's that moment when someone who once had power over you realizes they no longer do. They can no longer hurt you. They can no longer bind you. They can no longer come back. All because you lost the fear, not of abandonment, not of rejection, but of losing them. In the past, that fear was your chain. It's what made you justify the unjustifiable. What made you accept crumbs, swallow your words, cry in silence just to avoid upsetting them, because losing that person felt worse than losing yourself, and that was the root of the suffering. But now, something changed. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, painful, like a wound healing with a sting. You learned how to be alone. You learned how to breathe without their messages, how to wake up without their voice, how to make decisions without their approval. And in that process, you discovered a truth that once felt impossible. You don't need someone who couldn't value you. And when they sense it, when they realize they can no longer control you with a glance, a message, a hollow promise, they panic. Because what gave them power over you was never their love. It was your fear, and now that fear is gone. Epictetus put it clearly. No person is free who is not master of themselves. And now you are your own master. You no longer tie your well-being to whether they come back. You no longer hinge your peace on an apology. You don't need closure, forgiveness, or one final conversation. You've stopped waiting for explanations from someone who never knew how to communicate. Because silence can be an answer too, and detachment is a victory. This doesn't mean coldness, it means clarity. It means you looked in the mirror, accepted the grief, hit rock bottom, and chose to rebuild. Not from resentment, but from self-respect. You stopped competing with ghosts. You stopped checking if they were watching you, asking about you, hurting when they saw your happiness. Because it no longer matters. And when they return, as they usually do, saying, "I just wanted to see how you're doing," you're already gone. Because when you're no longer afraid to lose someone, you don't cling to them. You don't chase answers. You just build a present so full of meaning that the past no longer fits. Marcus Aurelius said, "What is not good for the beehive is not good for the bee." And you are no longer useful to the one who broke you. Because you stopped giving without reciprocity. Because you learned that your love is not currency to buy attention. And because now you live from a braver kind of love. The kind that doesn't beg, doesn't wait. It acts. The difference is in the details. You no longer reply with urgency. You no longer explain yourself. You no longer justify your choices, not out of arrogance, but because you got tired of fighting for a place that was already yours by worth. And that person, they notice, they feel it, they sense it, and though they won't say it, deep down they twist inside, because they can no longer use your emotions as shelter. They no longer hold the control. And the most painful thing for someone who underestimated you is to see you free. Free to say no. Free to not reply. Free to never return. This kind of freedom doesn't need to be shouted. It's lived. It's the kind of freedom that unsettles, that unravels, that hurts. Because someone who once saw you on your knees now sees you standing, and they can't handle it, because they expected to find the same version of you. But what they see scares them. What they see is someone calm, centered, unshakable. As Seneca taught, a wise man is neither elated by prosperity nor cast down by adversity. And you've experienced both. You've loved and been hurt. You've believed and been betrayed. But you're still standing, wiser, stronger, more you. That's what breaks the one who didn't value you. seeing you move forward, knowing they can't come with you, because you're no longer afraid to lose them. And that emotional detachment is the hardest slap to their ego. You didn't have to scream it, you lived it. And if the last action was about replacing their presence with your fullness, this eighth one makes it clear. There's no longer room for someone you once feared losing, because now you realize that fear was never real. It was just a reflection of the fear of not loving yourself. But now you do. You choose yourself, you care for yourself, you respect yourself, and the fear is gone. So now, what do you do with this new power? How do you use it without falling into bitterness or pride? What's the most elegant, the most powerful, the most stoic way to respond? The next action won't ask you to ignore them or to confront them. It'll ask only one thing: thrive. Because nothing torments someone who didn't value you more than seeing that your success no longer belongs to them. If this message is helping you reclaim your worth, subscribe and join this space where we learn how to recover our dignity, protect our minds, and act with strength in front of those who fail to see our value. Action number 9. Become the victory they can no longer applaud. Silence hurts most when there's something to celebrate. But the person who once expected your failure is no longer there. That's the essence of this action. Grow so much, achieve so much, evolve so far, that the one who didn't value you has no place, no right to applaud. When someone didn't believe in you, when they saw you weak, confused, desperate for a crumb of attention, they thought you'd always stay that way, that your dreams were just talk, that your potential was an illusion, that without them you couldn't face the world. But you chose the hardest path, the path of silence and discipline. You made no promises. You didn't try to convince them. You didn't say, "You'll see." You stayed quiet and got to work, day after day, fall after fall, head down, eyes forward, no audience, no applause, no excuses. And then it happened. Something inside you lit up. That exact moment when you realized that your greatest revenge was not to prove anything, but to build everything. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly. Stop debating what a good man should be one. You stopped talking about your dreams. You turned them into routine. You stopped talking about your wounds. You turned them into scars. You stopped talking about what you lost. You started talking about what you gained with yourself. Now every step you take leaves a mark. Every project you complete, every success you celebrate, every time someone recognizes your growth. But there's one silent spectator who can no longer clap, who can't message you, who can't share your joy. Why? Because they're no longer there, because they no longer belong, because they left when you needed them most. And now the door is closed. Your victories are no longer shared. And that's what torments them. Not that you're okay, but that you're better without them, that you did it without their support, that you bloomed in dry soil with no one watering you, because that reveals a brutal truth for their ego. They were never necessary, and that hurts. More than any argument, more than any "I told you so," because it's the kind of truth that can't be denied. It stands there in front of everyone. A silent fact: you became someone admirable without them being part of it. Epictetus taught us, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And by becoming this quiet, witnessless triumph, you're living Stoic wisdom at its highest level. You don't react with anger. You don't seek revenge. You don't flaunt your success to hurt anyone. You just move forward. And that hurts them more than any word could. Now, every post you make, every positive comment, every photo from a new chapter of your life becomes a mirror. one that reflects their mistake, one that reminds them that when they had the chance to stay, they didn't. And you just keep going, not out of arrogance, but because you've learned a crucial truth. Your success doesn't need witnesses, it needs purpose. You're not doing this to impress the one who left. You're doing it to honor the one who stayed, yourself. And with each win, each step, you're writing a story that no longer needs external editors. You're no longer asking for approval. You're no longer seeking recognition from people who never saw your worth. As Seneca once said, life is like a legend. It's not about how long it is, but how well it's told. You're telling your own, and the one who didn't value you no longer appears in the chapter. Remember this. You don't have to rub your success in anyone's face. The people who underestimated you already see it, and the fact that they can't congratulate you, can't be present in your celebrations, can't hold a place in your glory, is punishment enough, because as you rise, they're stuck in the memory of who you used to be. But you're no longer that person. And that's the beauty of this action. It's relentless, yet never cruel. It's elegant, yet never arrogant. It's stoic, yet deeply human. It's a declaration of freedom, because now the only applause you need is your own. And if this action represents the power of your rise, the next one will be the final act. The one that transforms your progress into the most beautiful and brutal ending of all. The silent confirmation that nothing stops you now, because nothing can. Action number 10. Let your growth be the cruelest and most elegant response. Sometimes the best response is silence, but other times it's the echo of your steps walking away, without ever looking back. There's something profoundly unsettling about seeing someone move on, without anger, without hatred, without the need to prove anything, just moving forward as if you never existed. When someone failed to value you, they expected a reaction, yelling, messages, pleading, or at least a sign of pain. What they didn't expect was this: your silent transformation, your constant growth, your ability to rebuild your world without them in it. And that is the hardest blow, because the one who left assuming they'd be missed panics when they realize they were replaced by your progress, seeing that you left behind what once hurt so much, that the memory no longer holds you back, that you no longer need explanations, that your life kept moving and got better. That doesn't just hurt. It dismantles. Marcus Aurelius wrote with wisdom, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's how you turned your breakup into a revolution, abandonment into momentum, their silence into your personal symphony. And you didn't do it for revenge. You did it because something inside you awakened. The part that no longer seeks validation, the part that understands moving forward, isn't a choice. It's an act of self-loyalty. Your growth became unstoppable, not because it no longer hurts, but because you no longer depend on pain to move. And that's what hits the hardest. Because when someone underestimates you, they imagine you stuck, broken, shattered, begging for their return. But not you. You grew, you changed, and each step you took became an elegant response to every moment of disregard you once kept silent. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And you changed your reaction. You stopped seeing yourself as a victim. You stopped asking why. You stopped waiting for someone to value what you had offered. Instead, you took back all the power you had given away and turned it into strength. You returned to the gym. You dove into your passions. You took care of your health. You built new habits. You surrounded yourself with people who truly value you. You learned to be with yourself. And above all, you decided your story wouldn't end in disappointment, but in redemption. And now, as you move forward, some people watch in silence. People who once consumed your time, your energy, your love, and who now no longer have access. They see your success from a distance, your peace, your genuine joy, and they can't get close, because you close the door without slamming it. That's the cruelest response, that there's no room for their return, that you're no longer waiting, that your gaze no longer turns at the sound of their name, that your smile needs no permission to shine. But this isn't cruelty born from resentment. It's elegant cruelty, noble, stoic. It comes from acceptance, from the deep understanding that not everyone deserves a place in your future, just because they were part of your past. And in that silent forward motion, in that decision to not look back, you are reborn, stronger, wiser, more conscious, a version of you who no longer responds with words, but with actions. Seneca said it with precision: the best revenge is not to be like the one who hurt you. And you're no longer like that hurt version of yourself. You've become something new, a person who doesn't need to destroy in order to rebuild. And if there was still any doubt, this is the final lesson. Your evolution is irreversible. There's no turning back, no space for regression, because what you lost in that bond, you gained in freedom. So now let the one who failed to value you see your growth and realize they can't keep up. Let them feel with every one of your steps that the distance between you isn't just physical, it's existential. You no longer live in the same world. Your growth left them behind. And you don't need to explain. You don't need to shout it. Your growth speaks for itself. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike the one who caused you harm. And you're not just unlike them. You're unreachable. There is no sharper weapon than a person who no longer expects anything from the one who disappointed them, because real power doesn't lie in making someone pay for what they did. It lies in no longer living under the weight of their memory. You've learned that you don't need revenge, that peace isn't found in their regret, but in no longer needing it, that moving forward isn't an act against someone else, but an act of loyalty to yourself. Each of these 10 actions was never meant to destroy anyone, but to rebuild you. They are emotional freedom. They are stoic paths out of the vicious cycle of resentment, nostalgia, and dependency, because the one who didn't value you deserves neither your hatred, nor your sadness, nor your attention. They deserve only one thing: your absence. And you deserve much more than their return. You deserve your present, your focus, your evolution, and the certainty that you will never again give yourself completely to someone who fails to see the treasure you hold inside. Epictetus taught us with simplicity: don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will always be content. Accept what happened, appreciate what you learned, and honor what's coming. Now that you have these 10 actions, not to seek revenge, but to free yourself. Make yourself a silent promise you will never again beg for a place where they didn't know how to welcome you. Because today, finally you know, what most torments the one who didn't value you is not your absence, it's your wholeness. I'm truly excited to hear your stories of growth and transformation on this topic. Share your victories, your struggles, and your experiences in the comments. And if you don't know what to write, just comment: those who didn't value me no longer have space in my mind. That simple phrase will mark the end of this session for you and the beginning of your new power. If this message resonates with you and aligns with your values of living with Stoic wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Your voice matters here. Each reflection strengthens and uplifts our community, revealing the true value of each individual and building our shared Stoic identity. Joining this Stoic community means breaking the chains that hold you back and building an inner fortress no one can tear down. Is there a topic you'd like to dive deeper into? Leave it in the comments. We've also prepared a pinned comment where you'll find more about us and helpful resources to start applying Stoic principles to your daily life. This is your invitation to take the next step toward a meaningful existence. I'll see you at our next gathering in Stoicism for Winners, where we'll continue exploring the richness of Stoic wisdom in modern life. And now, take this opportunity to expand your understanding of Stoicism through our recommended new sessions. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole master of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.